Welcome to the Hope for the Journey podcast, a weekday wellness tips program presented by Dr. Denise Marie, Third Order Carmelite. Dr. Denise is a professionally qualified clinical psychologist, health and wellness professor and coach, counselor, plus medicinal herbs educator. Each Hope for the Journey podcast features a well-being key from Dr. Denise, helping you meet your self-care needs for living well. Listener discretion is advised because this and other Hope for the Journey episodes may contain discussions surrounding behavioral health problems and other actual potentially triggering topics.
Good day, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to Hope for the Journey. I do hope things are coming along okay for you today. This is Dr. Denise speaking, and on today's episode of the podcast, I will be speaking about going on a day trip, which is a psychological self-care key for living well. When I talk about going on a day trip, I am specifically speaking about taking a mental health break day. That is, going on a one-day mental health vacation outing. Taking a one-day long getaway trip. And the purpose would be self-care. Now, this kind of self-care day trip is about changing your regular schedule and doing one or two of your favorite things outside of your usual surroundings and activity routine. So the core purpose of dedicating time and focusing on yourself and other things that bring you joy is for you to return from such a day trip feeling significantly more psychologically refreshed than when you left for the trip at its start. So you might be wondering, what do I mean by psychologically refreshed? And when I say that, I am specifically looking at the emotional level and the spiritual level. On the emotional level, what I'm talking about is the issue of being emotionally strained and or even drained being such a common contributing factor to people having less well-being in their lives. And I also talk about being psychologically refreshed on the spiritual level because going backwards spiritually is another significant factor in people having less well-being. So back to the emotional level, emotional strain and or drainage is commonly associated with overstimulation and understimulation of particular emotions. For example, overactive emotions of sorrow, of hate or dislike, overgrown fear, overgrown boldness or courage, overgrown despair, anger. And then when I mention understimulation of particular emotions, it is often the emotions of longing, that is desire, and happiness that are not being stimulated as much as they were meant to be. And emotional strain and or drainage is commonly associated with burying particular emotions, emotional charges alive to the detriment of the health of the rest of the emotional life. And this kind of suppression is a quite unhealthy habit, which I actually have talked about more in a previous podcast entitled Feeling Your Feelings. And now returning to the spiritual level, going backwards spiritually, is another problem, and it can especially happen when unhealthy spiritual seeds are planted in one's relationship with God, such as an unhealthy concept of God. Also, going backwards spiritually factors significantly in terms of friendship with God, particularly having that relationship with God grow colder. Then, as a result of becoming less strong in these kinds of spiritual and emotional ways, people can become more vulnerable to developing psychological symptoms and even physical symptoms. Now, at this point, you might be wondering whether it is really worth it to plan in a day trip for your mental health on a regular basis. Well, I do believe it is well worth your while. There is key and quality wellness research that actually supports the importance of the Mental Health Day message. And at this point in the podcast, I'd like to review what some of the benefits are for taking a regular mental health day for yourself. First, it can improve your mood through solid emotional processing. If you make that emotional processing a priority in your going out on a day trip. Going on this mental health day can actually contribute to your having a better attitude in general. It can recharge your emotional batteries and also your spiritual batteries if you set aside a little time within that day trip to simply be in conversation with God. Taking that one day outing can also help prevent the development of any burnout. And if any burnout is already underway, it can certainly help the situation from getting worse. This idea of a mental health day break also can help you focus on and get your priorities straight. It provides an opportunity to reset your life directions. Having this break day also increases your productivity for working, which certainly I'm sure employers will appreciate. Going out on this kind of day trip helps to make sure that you are not becoming a workaholic. And if you already are in that situation, can really help you to refocus your life on a road away from making work the number one priority in your life. Going on a day trip will also give you an opportunity to develop and experience more gratitude for what are the real blessings in your life, because often those blessings are harder to discern where you're in the midst of the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life. Going on a day trip can also forestall resentment or even bitterness from taking hold on you in both soul and body. Going out on this type of day outing can also prevent psychological disorders, especially anxiety spectrum disorders or depression, from getting into place. And certainly, it is beneficial to prevent physical disorders as well through this type of psychological self-care of taking a mental health trip on a given day. So you might be thinking about when would it be best to go on your day trip. And of course, that's certainly up to you because you have an idea of exactly which day of the week would be best in your schedule to plan for that. And you might also be wondering how often would it be best to take a mental health break day trip. So, as far as the question of frequency, I would say that it would be important to plan in at least one mental health day for yourself each month. However, I truly believe that 2 mental health days per month would be ideal to put into place in your schedule. Also, there is the question of what means to use to actually go on this mental health break day trip. And of course, you might want to vary it, but you can certainly, if you like to ride trains, decide that you're going to take a train trip. You might also go by car. You could also jump in a cab. There's also the possibility that you might be able to simply go on foot or even using a bike, whether it's your own or you simply go to a bike rental shop to make that happen. And what kind of things that are your favorite things would you like to include during your day trip? I mean, some people simply enjoy the idea of planning to hang out at a particular coffee shop that they find brings them enjoyment. You might be the kind of person that would like to factor in seeing a particular play during your day outing. You also might have been postponing yet wanting to have a hair salon appointment, and this day outing would be an opportunity for that. Of course, there is also listening to the music of your choice, if that has been difficult in your day-to-day schedule to make happen. You can also take a hike at a very nice location. Also, find a book that you really like and read it in a very lovely park. Of course, you can also take in a movie, and I would guess that you probably have other ideas of what you'd like to include during your day trip. However, when all is said and done, the bottom line is that going on a day trip advances your mental health for living well. Next in this podcast, I would like to turn our attention to 2 famous people who have gained psychological benefit from going out on day trips. First, there is musician Josh Groban. I learned that in addition to being an actor and Grammy winner who sold millions of records, Josh is not reluctant to spend a good deal of time on day trips out. Besides a history of taking time out for a concert, Josh also likes supporting local farms that struggle to keep going. So he has derived enjoyment from going out to pick up boxes of fresh farm produce. Then he would go back to his home and increase his cooking skills by bringing in recipes for whatever ingredients he now had access to. Another example of someone understanding the mental health pluses of going out for break days is Denzel Washington. Denzel is an American actor, film director, and producer who actually has not considered himself a person with many hobbies. However, Denzel Washington has demonstrated his enjoyment for attending basketball games and even taking advantage of being out for fun to have Mr. Softy ice cream bought from an official New York Mr. Softy truck. So I believe you can see that both Josh Groban's and Denzel Washington's taking day getaway trips are included in their practices for living well. I found a piece of music for this podcast about going on a day trip. And I think the lyrics underline the reality that in order to ensure the mental health day actually takes place, you might need to make some boundaries with one or more persons in your life. The song is simply named I'm Taking the Day Out, and it is by singer Chris Ray. So, with the help of the internet, I found the song lyrics, and the ones that I would like to highlight for reading to you go like this. I'm taking the day out. I'm slipping away. I know what you're thinking, but please, not today. Tell me tomorrow, or never at all, 'cause I know, so maybe I'll give you a call. I'm taking the day out. Yes, taking the day out. Oh, taking the day out. Day out. Tell me tomorrow, or never at all. I know what you're after. I'll give you a call. I'm taking the day out. Yes, day out. In this song by Chris Ray, the words reveal some of the verbal effort that can go into letting others know that you will not be around for a given day. Yet the habit of going on a day trip is worth putting into practice for the benefit of your psychological wellness and more. At this point, I would like to encourage you toward a little extra care for you and your mental health. Therefore, I am going through the following several health foods and plants that can support going on a day trip, which is our psychological self-care key of the day. And before deciding on personal use, remember to discuss these health foods and plants with your doctor, as your individual state of health is important. So, for the benefit of your taking that day out for some self-care, I am presenting these particular health foods and plants as complementary to the workings of your soul and body. First, I would like to indicate having a bit of coconut. Coconut is a good food. It provides a quick energy booster for so many. It can also be ingested as a milky water or oil. Next, there is Panax ginseng. Ginseng is an herb that can aid in the decrease of emotional and physical stress, as well as enhance one's endurance. Then I would like to mention ginkgo biloba. Ginkgo has an impressive nutritional profile and naturally relieves stress plus boosts energy and stamina. Of course, talking with your doctor about any trial use of such herbs is a good idea so your particular health profile is taken into account. Otherwise, I appreciate this chance to underline coconut, Panax, ginseng, and ginkgo as a couple of nature's gifts, which could potentially assist your efforts in taking that psychological health day out. I also have this brief item to share with you today. It is a post-it I have written to encourage you to make it a monthly self-care routine to go on a day trip. So I hope you will take to heart these words from a friend, actually adapted from Psalm 23, verses 1 through 3. You can lie down in green meadows. You can be led beside restful waters, and your soul will be refreshed. Next, I wanted to take a closer look at the kind of places likely to support doing your favorite things when you take your monthly mental health day trip. Places that would advance your psychological well-being. So here is a list of favorite spots that people often identify as their happy places. A local botanical garden, a nature conservatory, on the grounds of a retreat center, a music festival that features more than one option for concert listening, a local carnival, the beach, near a waterfall, a record or music store, and a drive-in movie theater instead of a regular movie theater. Even if it feels like the stuff of retro dates your parents might have participated in back in the day, a drive-in cinema can actually put a fun twist on your usual movie-going experiences. Yet beside these listed favored places, you can keep in mind that there are other avenues of help shared in our Hope for the Journey podcast resource center located on Instagram at Cause for Hope. Also, as a way of finishing up this evening's presentation, I would like to share how glad I am to spend this podcast time with you, reviewing today's subject matter, speaking about the psychological self-care key of going on a day trip. And please know that I personally wish you more hope for the journey of greater well-being.
The Hope for the Journey program airs weekday evenings from 7:45 p.m. to 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Instagram and YouTube. Dr. Denise thanks you for listening to her Community Wellness podcast and wishes you to keep in mind that there is cause for hope of more well-being.